Hey there, I am Robert Perrier. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer for Impact USA. We are an HPLC column company. And today I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about oligonucleotide analysis. First I talk about why is it so important right now? Well, in therapeutics, it's such a huge, important topic for the future of therapeutics to help cure diseases. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the challenges for the chromatography and some solutions that we have. So stay tuned. It's going to be really helpful.
All right, oligonucleotide analysis. Lots of fun. So recently, I keep getting asked about oligonucleotide analysis. What do you have? What columns? What methods do you have? And there's an important reason for this. In my entire career, I started out, most new drugs that were being developed were all based around small molecule analysis. And even to this day, it's still quite prevalent. But we started to see this trend, a shift towards antibody use in therapeutics. They're used for targeted drug delivery, like with ADCs. They're used to boost immune systems to fight diseases. So many fantastic applications for that. But right now what we're seeing is this huge shift over to oligonucleotide-based therapeutics. And funny enough, it was the COVID pandemic that really, I feel, led this dramatic change. Now, several companies had been trying to utilize this type of science to fight diseases, but it was really with the development of the vaccines for COVID where we saw them take center stage in the world view, and they were incredible, right? It was the fastest vaccine we've ever made. Before that, took 4 years to make. That was the fastest vaccine that had ever been developed and put into practice. And here with the oligos, it was done in less than a year. So just phenomenal. So let's take a look at why oligos are so powerful in the therapeutic world. So first of all, we can custom synthesize the oligo to fit the need, right? In this case, they were developing an oligo that coded for the spike proteins on the surface, and so that you can have your own body make those proteins that they're going to see with the COVID virus and develop an immune response to that disease. So really fantastic. So the customization and quick, right? You can synthesize an oligo today, and then maybe you want to try something new and you make a small change. You can do that very quickly. So adaptability, speed, and there's also just the mechanism of how a messenger RNA or an oligonucleotide is utilized within a cell to cause the effect that you're looking for. It's much closer to the end result, right? So we'll take a look at that in just a minute. But there's so many huge advantages, and regardless of how you feel about, politically or otherwise, how the whole COVID vaccine rollout happened, for me as a scientist, I was so excited just to see that we were developing and using this type of science as a therapeutic. It was just a quantum leap as far as I'm concerned in the science of development of drugs. So let's take a look at the complexity of small molecule. So small molecule drugs, first of all, they're typically not very specific. So you have to generally take them in pretty high dose, especially if it's an oral small molecule drug, for it to survive through the digestive process, through the liver processing, and then to be in a circulating level within the blood to be delivered to the target tissue for that therapeutic. And then once it reaches it, I put this slide up just to show there are so many different points of attack that that small molecule could be targeting. And it typically results in a cascade of events that may have 15, 20, 30 steps before you get the desired end result. So they're very complex. We end up seeing a ton of side effects. Efficacy can be an issue. Drug delivery is an issue. So there are a lot of reasons why we want to look for other possible ways of developing therapeutics. Now, the beauty in oligonucleotides is it's right at the point of impact. You know, recall back to the whole concept of the central dogma, right? We have DNA that gets transcribed into messenger RNA. That messenger RNA is translated into a string of amino acids, resulting in a proteins or peptides or some output that you're looking to have from that. And that's the body's normal machinery doing that, right? So in this case, if you're synthetically creating the messenger RNA, you're right at this point where the effector is going to happen. So far fewer steps in between where your desired effect can go awry. The other really nice thing is that oligonucleotides, the body already has machinery to break them down quickly. So we're not relying on the liver or the kidneys to get rid of the drug we've introduced. The body's own machinery, after it's transcribed, RNases will come in and break the oligo down into these biological building blocks that we can use for other actions. Or anyway, it's all within the natural biology of that cell's normal actions. So it's a very nice, wonderful thing. I'm a big fan. But we're an HPLC column company, so we want to talk about the HPLC side of this, the chromatography side of this. And let me first say, oligonucleotide analysis is really hard. It really is. And for several reasons. And so I think we're seeing two factors. So we're seeing this shift in the science where they're seeing how powerful of a tool oligonucleotides can be in a huge range of possible therapeutics. But then the chromatography is so hard, and there are a lot of challenges. So let's talk about these. And the first one is oligonucleotides. They're very polar, right? They're water, loving things. They don't stick very well to C18s. They just don't do well on a hydrophobic situation. And so traditionally, the solution has been the use of ion pairing reagents. And I've listed several here that are used in oligonucleotide applications that I've seen. And if you're right now using ion pairing for your oligonucleotide analysis, please reach out to me. Let me help you fix this. Ion pairings are terrible. We're going to talk about the challenges specifically to ion pairing in just a sec. But that's not the only issue. Another issue is the phosphate groups. There are a ton of phosphates on oligonucleotides. Every base pair has at least one phosphate group with it. And so the phosphates themselves can really cause issues with chromatography. Particularly, they are strong chelators with the metal ions that are on the surface of stainless steel. And we're going to definitely talk about that. Another really big challenge is, oligonucleotides. They're strings of base pairs. And you could have two oligonucleotides that have very different biological function, but chromatographically they're almost identical. They could differ by only a single base pair. And so that makes it really, really challenging as far as the chromatography is concerned. All right, so let's take a closer look at what we're talking about. So these are some very common bases that we see here on the left that are make up part of that long polymer of oligonucleotides. And you can see it has the phosphate group. And in the example in the center, you can see there are two very exposed phosphate groups. And of course, on the oligo chain on the right, you can see this very prominent phosphate exposed area on that molecule. And then the other topic, which was, distinguishing very similar oligonucleotides. I mean, take a look at that. There's a lot going on in that oligomer chain. And if you're trying to separate based on, look at cytosine and uracil. They're almost identical, right? Very minor differences between these. How do you separate that? These are all challenges in the chromatography. And as I had mentioned, ion pairing is the most common solution historically that I've seen. And some of the common ones that I've mentioned relating to oligonucleotide analysis, they have a lot of similarities here. What you see is a hydrophobic portion, and then you also typically will see an amine group of some sort. And that amine group is going to basically present a positive charge to try to have some interaction with that negative phosphate group. So that's the primary retention mechanism when doing reverse phase with ion pairing for oligonucleotide analysis. The idea here is that the hydrophobic section of this ion pairing reagent is going to sit down on that C18 bed. And then this will present that positive portion of this ion pairing molecule to the surface, where you're going to participate in some electrostatic interaction between the positive portion of that amine and that negative phosphate, all the oxygens that are on that phosphate group. All right, so here's another look at that. The image on the left, I'm just showing how those hydrophobic chains in the ion pairing reagent want to seat themselves inside that C18 bed and present that charged area on the surface. The image on the right is showing oligonucleotide analysis with a common ion pairing reagent. Again, we're just getting a little bit more detail, showing that positively charged surface that we're creating with the ion pairing is interacting with the negative charge that's on the phosphate chain. All right, so working with ion pairing has a lot of issues. First of all, it's transient. So, that was another reason why I wanted to show the site. It says transitory ion exchange site. So it's always in flux, and it's concentration dependent mostly. So the concentration of ion pairing reagent that you introduce into your mobile phase is going to be the way that you can control on and off with the ion pairing process. And so as your mobile phase is moving through the column, this, charged surface that you're trying to present to your oligos is constantly in flux. So if you have the ion pairing reagent in your A solution but not in your B solution, this can be problematic. And there's just a million things that are really hard to pin down and get consistency when you're using ion pairing reagents. Now, people have done it successfully. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I do it all the time, I get you and I know. And Otherwise, it wouldn't be used for so long as it has. But it's just one other element here that if we can eliminate would definitely improve our consistency. Another couple of points here. Choosing the best ion pairing is important. Some work better than others, especially with your specific needs. So again, I hope I'm just showing the complexity of using it and how many things that you have to work out to A, have good retention, but also B, to have consistent performance over and over again. The column itself would need to be equilibrated to that ion pairing reagent. You want to give it substantial time for all those ion pairing reagents to seat themselves consistently on the surface of that C18. So there's a lot of issues with it, and we definitely want to get rid of it if we can. The other main issue here is by design. Ion pairing reagents stick to everything, right? They have both polar and nonpolar sections. They are just going to stick to everything. Your injection port, the needle tip, the tubing, the seals, and especially the detector, right? All the metal in the detector, they're just going to stick everywhere. And so throughout the years, when I talk to people and they say, oh yeah, we use ion pairing, it's on that machine over there in the corner. So they basically just dedicate one system to this thorough contamination that they're going to get with the ion pairing. And again, that's just practically not ideal. If we can get rid of ion pairing, it's definitely going to be better. And if you're wanting to use mass spec, and almost all these new groups that I'm talking to that are wanting to develop therapeutics, they absolutely want to be able to use their mass spec for all the extra information it's going to provide them. And you're probably not going to want to be using ion pairing reagents with your mass spec. It's going to be very expensive to maintain that system and clean it and all the issues that are related to that. All right, so another issue that I mentioned was chelating effects of the phosphate groups with the column housing. Now, this is one that I don't think is on a lot of people's radar, but this is a real effect. Now, you can passivate your system to reduce this, but again, that's another step in the process, and it's not always 100% reliable. What I want to show here is you see we have two of the same exact molecule. This is just hydrocortisone, one phosphorylated, one that is not. And what you can see is on the metal column, the phosphorylated version of hydrocortisone shows this horrible peak shape. We have massive tailing and probably lost a lot of sample through adsorption to the stainless steel metal surface. So we have, less recovery of that analyte. Our reporting data for that quantity is going to be lower than real life. So this is just bad chromatography. And you can see we use exactly the same column, just a metal-free housing, and we can completely fix that. So we know that this is going to impact oligonucleotide analysis for sure. Here's another example. These are some triphosphates. So these are, the basic building blocks for these oligonucleotides. And you can see the metal column versus the metal free is a dramatic difference. So this is something we definitely want to implement in our oligonucleotide analysis. And specifically for mass spec users, this is one I like to show because not only can it affect what's happening in the column, but it can have this detector impact as well. And if you look at glyphosate here, on the metal column, it's completely gone. No peak. And when we run this on a non-mass spec system, we can see the peak. So therefore, we know that this is primarily caused by ion suppression that's occurring and likely due to those phosphates pulling off metal ions that are specifically blocking out this peak. So you can actually lose peaks by using stainless steel column housing versus the metal free. So again, this is what we're going to use for oligonucleotide analysis. And here's our metal free column. I like to show this just to show that basically we still, so a lot of peak metal free columns, the entire column housing is made of peak. This is not the ideal design just because the peak plastic is not very durable. It can stretch and flex. So we chose to stick with stainless steel housing to have the mechanical strength, but we've just lined that metal with peak. So it's a little bit more complex way of doing it, but we think this is the ideal solution for that. So the big issues with analyzing, let's just do a quick recap. The big issues by LC or LCMS are that they don't stick very well on reverse phase. And so pretty much you're kind of stuck using ion pairing if that's the way you want to go. Ion pairing is not very consistent. It's complex, it's tough to troubleshoot, and it can really contaminate your system. Oh, and the phosphate groups have an affinity for stainless steel, so you get poor peak shape, loss of sample, and really could impact your mass spec. Our solution is the metal-free Entrada organic acid column. This column is really perfectly suited for this. What is it? It's a mix mode, and it's a normal phase, so you have built-in polar retention plus ion exchange. And this ion exchange is a positive charge, so it presents a positive charge. This ligand already has that positive charge we want with the ion pairing. It's already built into the column. And so you definitely don't need any ion repairing, and you're going to get even better retention than trying to do this on a C18 because this is a polar normal phase column. So, and as I said, it comes standard and metal free, so no more issues with the phosphate groups. And in our analysis, we're able to get single base pair differences resolved in the oligos. So really, it covers all of the bases needed for an improved oligonucleotide analysis. Let's take a look at 3 app notes that we have on this. I want to point out that these are all 3 on LCMS. So this method can directly be put onto your system as is, and it's going to function perfectly. You don't have to worry about all the issues that I mentioned before with your mass spec. Now, the 3 methods here are just on different lengths of column. The one on the far right is the high resolution. So this is a 150 millimeter length column. So if you need higher resolution, you probably gravitate towards that. If you're getting resolution is just fine, then maybe you can go with the shorter column to the far left at 50 millimeter. But you can see in these methods, we're using very standard mobile phases. We're using acetonitrile and ammonium formate. That's it. Pretty simple. Definitely better than using an ion pairing reagent. And do we get single base pair difference resolution? Let's look at the app note to the right on that 150. You can see that what our test mixture here is oligothymidyllic acid, base pair lengths from 12 to 18. So that first peak there, that's 12, then 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then 18. So we can separate baseline resolution for single base pair difference between these 3 different chain links. So it's definitely got all the chops needed for your analysis. So just to kind of give a quick summary, definitely recommend our Entrada organic acid for this type of analysis. It's a mix mode that allows you to completely get rid of the ion exchange, or I'm sorry, the ion pairing that you may have already been using. So no more ion pairing, mass spec, friendly mobile phases, easy to implement. It's powerful. We can get single base pair separation, and it comes standard with metal-free column housing, so you no longer have to deal with all the phosphate groups.
All right, well, thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful and that you can learn that we have this incredible mixed mode column that combines both normal phase, polar retention, and ion exchange that makes it so you can completely get rid of the ion pairing in your oligonucleotide analysis. If you have questions about this or anything at all, please hit me up at info@mtacusa.com and I'd be happy to work with you.